What's going on YouTube? So the Mazda crossover lineup has seen lots of changes over the last few years. And one of those changes was the addition of the new CX-50 to the lineup. Now today we're with the latest 2026 example, and this model has way more changes than what meets the eye. So we want to know today, do these revisions make a big difference? And does this mean this model should move up your shopping list above big rivals like the RAV4? Let's go ahead and find out. Alright, so let's start things off with our spec dump. Under the hood, you'll still continue to find 3 available powertrains on the CX-50, including the powerful turbo we have today. This is a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making 256 horsepower. It's paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, and with all-wheel drive, our combined fuel economy is 25 mpg.
Now, the base price for 2026 is $29,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, later on, we'll be taking it out for a spin to show you the performance. While we're on that spin, we'll get things like our sound level reading, and at the end, discuss resale and reliability.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because those 2026 changes begin right away with the exterior. So getting into the exterior here, first I want to mention some trim level adjustments for 2026. There's actually 3 adjustments. First of all, the Meridian trim is now available with both gas engines instead of just the turbo. The Premium Plus now is not available on the base engine. And new for 2026 is actually what we have with us today. The turbo trim level now has a base option instead of having to go to just the Premium or Premium Plus. Now, let's jump into some visual differences because there are actually some things that you can notice up here in the front. Of course, we've got that signature Mazda design here, quite handsome looking. But new this year, we have a gloss black badging. That's going to be for just the turbo models, but it's going to help visually distinguish those turbo models from all the other trim levels and powertrain options. Moving over here to our headlights, we have standard full LED headlights on all trim levels. Your top spec models will get the adaptive LEDs you see here today. That's all the turbos. And new this year, the top hybrid will get the adaptive LEDs. Down below, we also have a turn signal indicator separated with the animated effect. Moving on to the wheels, you have several different options from 17 to 20-inch alloy wheels. What we have today is the 20-inch alloy wheel. This is a contrast design, which I think looks very nice. You also notice the blacked out badging does continue to the wheels as well. And this year, Mazda has expanded the availability of the 20-inch wheel option to more trim levels. Of course, you got some cladding that's going to go around your wheel arches as well as the lower part of the body. As we move up here to our mirrors, you'll notice we have a gloss black finish. All models get heating and blind spot monitoring. You also have some premium features available, such as power folding. And if you want auto dimming, you can get that, but you have to choose the very top Turbo Premium Plus.
At the side of the CX-50, overall vehicle length is 185.8 inches. We have a little bit of chrome accenting, but most of our window surrounds are going to be blacked out, and we also have blacked out roof rails up top. I really am a big fan of this blue paint color. You can also get really interesting choices such as a green option as well. Now, let's go ahead and head around to the rear design of the CX-50. Now, when it comes to overall design, nothing is really going to change much besides for some of the individual elements. So let's go ahead and talk about those individual elements. So we have a spoiler up here at the top. We have a rear window wiper. Of course, we're going to have the new blacked out badging. So that goes for both your Mazda badge as well as all of your CX-50 and turbo badging off to the side. I think it looks really nice and cohesive. And let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights are going to be a full LED unit. These are very premium taillights with your amber turn signal indicator, LED reverse light, and LED brake light. And then as we drop down to the lower fascia, we have a little bit of silver accenting as well as some cladding. Your tow rating depends on what powertrain you choose. The hybrid is 1,500 pounds, the base 2.5 is 2,000 pounds, or this turbo is 3,500 pounds as a maximum. Now in this competitive segment, you need to have all the active safety features as standard equipment. That is going to be the case for the CX-50. That will even include things like adaptive cruise control. The only caveat to that is rear auto braking is added on your top-end CX-50. But guys, there's actually quite a lot of changes to talk about on the inside for 2026. But first,
If you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12 and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point. No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, let's move to the interior next. Here's our key fob first of all. It's just the typical Mazda key fob there. Your buttons are located on the side. Smart entry is standard equipment. Getting inside the vehicle, just reach behind the handle. There's a sensor behind there to unlock the door. And then let's check out the interior. So of course, this is a pretty new model. It's got a fairly modern Mazda design. And let's start by talking about the seats as always. So there is actually an adjustment this year. Mazda is introducing a new color, so it's available on a few different trims. You can get a new white option for the first time. And of course, there's still a wide variety of other color options available on different trim levels as well, including a very premium looking terracotta, and the hybrid also has a red interior option. Now, as far as the seating material, you'll always have at least leatherette, but we have a genuine leather on this model. And as you can see, we've got the nice color contrast stitching details. Everything feels very nice and premium as well. And then down below, we have a 10-way power adjusting seat. That's standard on all but the base model. Also, your premium trims as well as the turbo models will get the memory seats located right there. Well, let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, closing up the door, let's look at the cabin materials overall. So the CX-50 remains a very premium option for the segment. You'll have a leatherette material on the armrest that's nicely padded. On the center section here, you've got more of that running through with a very nice looking cross stitch and then a soft touch plastic along the top. The same solid materials continue up across the upper dashboard. We have more of that leatherette with the cross-stitching detail through there. And then down here on our center tunnel, we don't have any padding on this trim level. You do have a little bit of piano black detailing around the shifter as well, and everything feels very solid in the typical Mazda way. Now we'll fire it up with the standard push-button start. And with it all fired up, we can dig into the individual cabin details. We'll start with the gauge cluster as always. Here's your 7-inch digital gauge cluster. This is standard on all trims. And as you can see, you got a few different views that you can choose between. And in addition to that, you also have an available head-up display. This is standard actually on all the turbo models, which is pretty impressive because, of course, like I said, we're in that new base turbo trim level. Pulling back to the steering wheel, we've got a leather-wrapped steering wheel across the entire lineup. You also have manual tilt and telescoping and standard rain-sensing wipers. There's been an update to the heating of the steering wheel, though. That's still available on just the upper trims, but previously the highest and hybrid could, for whatever reason, not get the heated steering wheel. For 2026, they've rectified that, so the top hybrid does have a heated steering wheel now. Taking a look at our center console, we can analyze the amount of storage we have inside. Of course, we've got donuts in there. That's because here at Car Confections, we do the donut test and check the volume of the center console. Today we have 9 donuts inside, so that of course is under the dozen required to pass the test and a little bit small for this class of vehicle. Now, in front of that though, I want to point out that this wireless charger has become standard equipment on all trims for 2026. And then you've got your 2 cup holders in front of the shifter itself and a little bit more storage right there. Speaking of the shifter, here it is, just a traditional style, nothing complicated about it. Pull back for drive, bump to the left if you want to shift manually, and turbo models come with paddle shifters. Heading into reverse, here's our regular backup camera. As you can see, nothing really special going on here. Actually, we don't even have active trajectory. This is what is standard on many trim levels. Also, the 360 camera, that's going to be on just the fully loaded Turbo Premium Plus trim. And Mazda has expanded the availability of rear backing sensors to more trim levels for 2026. You also have an electronic parking brake with brake hold function right there. Here's your controller for the infotainment system, and then right next to that you have the volume knob for the audio systems. So standard on the CX-50 is an 8-speaker sound system. However, we have the 12-speaker Bose sound system, like many of the upper-end examples of this product. Let's give it a sample right now. Yeah, so overall sound quality of this system is pretty good. Definitely fills up the cabin nicely. All right, now we'll move our attention to the center section here. We've got a simple array of climate controls. This is dual zone automatic climate, so you just adjust your temperature up and down with these easy to use knobs, and you have full physical controls right through there. All but the very base trim will come with heated seats. Premium and above trims come with ventilated seats, and they have expanded the availability of the vented seats this year as well. And then we'll look at the technology next. So we have a standard 10.25-inch display on all trims. As you can see, it is kind of recessed back, and that's because, of course, you have that control knob where you can control some of the key functions without touching the screen. As a matter of fact, in Mazda's infotainment system, you can't actually touch the screen. However, when you're using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which, by the way, are both wireless and standard equipment, that's when you can touch the screen. Up above here, we've got an auto-dimming mirror with integrated HomeLink remotes. And then this right here is something I really want to highlight about the CX-50 because it's a standout feature. Not that it has a panoramic sunroof, a lot in the class do offer panoramic sunroofs, but the fact that Mazda is making this standard on every trim except the base model for 2026. That is absolutely fantastic because a lot of the competition makes you pay a big upcharge even on upper end trim levels.
And let's go ahead and check out the rear seats of the CX-50. Now, of course, vehicles in this segment have to be pretty practical for the family, and indeed we are going to find a pretty practical rear seat. Now, in terms of legroom, what we're sitting at is about 40 inches of legroom, about 39 inches of headroom. Those are going to be actually really good figures for the segment. It is still going to be smaller than some of the rivals like Honda CR-V, but it is bigger than that all-new Toyota RAV4. Now, I will say that Mazda tends to a little bit exaggerate their rear legroom figures, which is one of the reasons why we bring along the Car Confections ruler. The reason we do that is we can see a realistic knee room figure behind Drew's 5'8" seating position. I'm 5'9", and we are looking at about 6 inches of additional knee room, which is actually less than most of the competition. However, my feet do have plenty of room to slide up underneath of these seats. And speaking of these seats, they are going to definitely be on the firm side here in the back, but they are decently comfortable. And as far as reclining ability, you do not have the ability to recline, so it's just going to be a fixed position. Now, if we fold down the center armrest, we have 2 cup holders inside, and let's take a look at our features. So we have rear vents right here in the center. We also have 2 charging USB ports. These are a Type-C variety, and there is a 2026 change. So the CX-50 can get heated rear seats, but one of the trim levels that it's new to is the Hybrid Premium Plus. So previously, the fully loaded hybrid couldn't get heated back seats for whatever reason, and Mazda has rectified that for 2026. Definitely happy to see that. Now, over on the door trim, it is going to be hard touch on the upper part, so that's a little cheaper than the front. However, we have leatherette all through the center section, and on the armrest and down below, we have lots of door storage. Now, walking up to the tailgate, we do have a power tailgate, and that's going to be actually standard on all but the very base CX-50. Do be aware, though, that the kickability is actually not offered, oddly enough, on this vehicle. And let's talk about overall cargo capacity. So when it comes to the CX-50, you'll have a decent amount. It's about 31 cubic feet behind the second row of seats and 56 cubic feet as a maximum. I do really love the fact that they have these handles to easily fold the seats down. They do fold 60-40 split, by the way, and that will give you your full 56 cubic feet. The hybrid is going to be very similar in terms of overall cargo capacity, so definitely don't worry about that. Now that is going to be less than some of your main rivals like the all-new RAV4 as well as the Honda CR-V. Those are going to be close to about 15 to 20 cubic feet more space than what you find in the CX-50. And speaking of those rivals, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now the reason you do that is because we've gone through all the compact SUVs on the market. This is an incredibly popular and competitive segment and ranked them in the 10 most important categories to you all, the shopper. Things like cargo capacity, interior technology, luxury features, powertrains, all of that is detailed there for you. So depending on what matters most to you, you can see your best option. So definitely take advantage of that if you want to make an informed buying decision. Now back to the CX-50, let's go ahead and get our cargo length, width, and height figures. Brought along the tape measure with me. From behind Drew's 5'8" seating position, we are looking at 75 inches of overall cargo length. From behind the second row of seats, about 41 inches of length. As far as the opening, 42 inches wide. And then the height is coming in at a little over 27 inches tall. That's definitely going to be smaller than some of the other options that you can get in the segment. As far as the height, about 29 inches in height. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2026 Mazda CX-50. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also get things like our sound level reading, but first we need to start with a hard acceleration.
Easy as that. You've made it to 60 miles an hour with the turbo version of the CX-50. So throughout the years, we've always talked, very highly about specifically the turbocharged models with the Mazda lineup, and it's becoming rarer and rarer in this segment. That's a little hard to say. But there's a lot of options that just don't offer any type of high-powered versions anymore. And this really stands out with its 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. It's a 2.5-liter turbocharged engine. And, as we also discussed, this is a new price point that it's available at that's a little bit lower this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge benefit over some of the rivals. You saw that acceleration. Really, most of the rivals, I definitely couldn't classify as like quick or, anywhere close to fast. So for those of you that actually kind of care about driving dynamics and, a little bit of your acceleration and things like that, this CX-50 is one of the very last options to have that. And I do believe that Mazda has confirmed at this point that the upcoming CX-5, the new one that will be coming out, won't have the turbo engine. So that's another thing worth noting about the CX-50. Now, there are also two other powertrain choices. There's a hybrid as well as a standard output 2.5 liter. The standard output 2.5 liter is sitting right around 190 horsepower for that one. And then the hybrid variant, which we spent extensive time with last year, is basically the Toyota RAV4, the previous generation RAV4's hybrid system with 219 horsepower.
Yeah, for me, this engine is all about that torque because it really does push you back in the seat and just gives you that nice feeling of acceleration. Even when you're going a little slow, just a regular takeoff, you definitely feel very powerful. Speaking of torque, I think that's a good point to move us into the transmission discussion. Our gas variants have a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, of course, as you probably know, most of the rivals don't offer a 6-speed anymore. That's a little bit of an old school type of transmission, but I think it works with the Mazdas because of the torque figure, especially on the turbo models. You don't need a lot of shifting because you have so much torque on hand, and this is a very smooth transmission as well.
Yeah, and the hybrid will have an eCVT, and let's talk about how the power is routed to the ground. On this model, you do actually have standard all-wheel drive, so that's definitely nice as compared to some of the rivals that make you pay extra for all-wheel drive and come standard with front drive. We'll talk a little bit more about the pricing in just a second, but I think you'll be impressed for 2026, just as a spoiler. Now it's a great time for us to discuss ride quality for the CX-50. We've actually spent several weeks with this model. I think we spent 2 weeks with the hybrid last year and a week before with the turbo model. So we've been behind the wheel of this vehicle quite a lot. Overall ride quality is going to be pretty good. Now I am saying pretty good because some of the other options in the segment definitely are more comfortable. This is a Mazda after all. They definitely have kind of honed in and kind of dove into that DNA of a Mazda being a little bit sportier than some of the other rivals. That's the case here. So you will feel more bumps enter into the cabin than the rivals like a Honda CR-V. I also want to point out that these seats are going to definitely be on the firmer side. That's one of the things that we noticed after living with it for a week compared to the rivals. Once more, they're definitely a little bit firm. And let's talk fuel economy. So what we're sitting at for the base 2.5 liter is 26 mpg. With the turbo, that's 25 mpg combined. So only 1 mpg penalty for choosing this for 2026. And then for the hybrid, 38 miles per gallon is what you're sitting at. So a huge discrepancy between the gas options and the hybrid. Definitely it will save you a lot at the pump if you choose that model. We do have dedicated hybrid reviews on the channel already if you'd like to go ahead and check those out. We've done it several times actually. But just kind of depends on what your priorities are. This is definitely going to be the faster option between the two.
Now as I make a legal U-turn on this road, it's a good time to talk about dynamics because I kind of whipped it a little bit, and that's because this is a fun-to-drive crossover, and that continues to be something that really stands out a lot from the competition. These typically are not exciting vehicles to buy. Most people don't buy them to be exciting, but this is a vehicle that adds a little bit of sport and flair to your everyday drive, especially when you, like I said, drive kind of aggressively. You have good body control. I love the steering as well. It's nice and firm and very responsive, as you can see with me changing lanes there a little bit. I do want to point out, it's not as heavy as it once was. So if you drove a Mazda a couple years ago, they lightened it just a little bit to make it more everyday livable, but it's still much, much tighter than average.
Let's go ahead and get our sound level reading going 55 miles per hour. That's, of course, also important. 58.2 decibels is what we are sitting at as our sound level reading in this CX-50. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to the rivals. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. There are a ton of rivals in this segment. That does mean that it's not, the quietest option that we have tested in this segment. However, it is going to be pretty quiet, just right around the middle of the pack. And let's hit our airball and slam dunk, our least favorite and favorite element for the CX-50. Drew, kick us off with the slam dunk.
Slam dunk 2026 updates. We like what they have done. They're meaningful upgrades, usually meaning more standard equipment, and things like the black badging visually look quite nice.
Yeah, I think this new base turbo trim is also a great deal. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And on the airball side, what we're just going to say, this car continues to kind of lack a little bit is practicality. I think really the reason that Mazdas don't quite sell as well as they should compared to some of the other options that you could get like a RAV4, just some practicality things like cup holder placement. The technology is definitely lacking compared to some of the rivals as well, and it also has less space and rear room. And now let's talk about pricing. So starting price for 2026 is a little over $29,000, which represents not much of a price premium over what it was before, and it's a pretty good price for this segment, that's for sure. Now, on the top end, prices have actually been reduced on some of your high-end examples for 2026, so definitely happy to tell you that your top-end Turbo Premium Plus is starting just a hair under $43,000. Now, what we have today is the 2026 CX-50. We have the base turbo trim level, which starts at $37,800 after a few options on it, $1,495 destination. All told, we're sitting at $40,190. If you're curious as to where this vehicle is manufactured, it is made here in the United States. Now, if you're looking to buy a Mazda CX-50 or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealer negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that in our video description, as well as a pinned comment down below. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale values. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Mazda CX-50's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it would be worth 59.44% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 25.3%. Now, it's worth noting those are actually really good resale value percentages. As a matter of fact, really the only brands that are better are Subaru, Toyota, and Honda, so that's one of the very best out there.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several reliability studies from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you the most holistic picture. In this regard, Mazda is rated just a bit above the overall industry average for all vehicle brands.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you do have a 3-year, 36,000-mile basic warranty and a 5-year, 60 powertrain. It is worth noting they do not do complimentary maintenance, unlike many of their rivals. And guys, that's going to wrap up our in-depth review of the 2026 Mazda CX-50. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing about all the 2026 changes on this model. If you did, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family, and we have a lot of fun on this channel and try and cover the latest cars on the market. I promise you won't want to miss out. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.